Welcome back to Grumpy Old Men, and we said at the start of the program that one of the greats of the Carlton Football Club was about to join us. He had a very, very graceful nickname. He was known as the Swan. David McKay, welcome.
Thanks, Kevin.
Where did the nickname come from?
I'd like to think it was because I was a graceful high flyer, but we did. It was one of those things that happen in football, and we all know how it happens. And I was doing laps one night, and Ricky McLean, as he was wont to do, had a rather uncharitable way of looking at people. And he said, "Mackay, you run like a chook with a broomstick up its clacker." He said, "I think I'll call you Swan." So it's one of those things that stuck. And, I wasn't too unhappy with the name because it did imply gracefulness, but everyone in the club knew how I got it.
Well, now, look, we've got to go back a long way because David comes from a magnificent hamlet called Newland, which is very close to Smeaton, which is very close to Clunes, where I came from. And Newland were always known for the tall ruckman that they had. The Richardson brothers were monsters, weren't they? And dominated the competition and should have played in Melbourne. Do you remember the Richardson brothers?
I remember them well. In fact, I played with their sons. You played against the fathers, and
yeah, that's
it shows
right.
your age and it shows mine as well. But, the interesting thing about the Richardson brothers, and also all the kids at my age, I always wanted to play in the ruck. Yeah. And I was about 6'4" at about 16 or 17. But there were other blokes much taller than me. Possum Valance was about 6'9". Yeah. David Keating was 6'5". So I had to play full back.
That's at the same club?
Same team, the same club.
Yeah. Oh, they were monsters. I hated going to Newland.
Mineral water and spuds.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Makes good men even better, my grandfather used to say.
So how did you finish up with the Blues, and did any other league club, seek out David McKay?
Well, I was zoned to Carlton, so I was one of the first players from the Bendigo zone, and I was pretty fortunate that I was actually the leagues were zoned on where the league headquarters were, and the Clunes League, where Bobby came from, was the name of the league that I was in. Had it been called the Creswick League, I'm sure the whole league would have been zoned to Ballarat, but it was called the Clunes League, and it was just on the edge of the Bendigo zone, and I ended up going to Carlton as a result of that, and it was certainly a decision I've never regretted, because just before that, the year before, I trained with Essendon, just one game, but they weren't allowed to sign anyone because that zoning was coming in, and there was an embargo on signing players from anywhere in the country until zoning came in. And it also had an approach from Collingwood. I spoke with Peter Lucas at one of the games there. Kevin Hines, a Newland man, was a keen Collingwood man and took me down and made sure I was introduced to the Collingwood hierarchy at the time. I think they gave me some chips, and I think even then the chips were cold, and so was the fish. The beer was warm, but I wasn't allowed to try it then. I was a bit young.
Was Newland a successful team when you were playing with them, or you were down the?
In the last game I played, it was a preliminary final. I think we played Creswick at Bungaree, and we were beaten in the preliminary final. Yeah. But the year after I left, they obviously got a bit of money for me, and they got Lindsay Lee from Maryborough, came along as coach, and they were premiers the following year.
I can imagine that'd be a nice sunny day, wouldn't it? Creswick and Bungaree on a winter's day. Was it snowing?
Actually, no. In the summer it was. In September it wasn't bad, but in the middle of winter, I remember playing a game at Victoria Park at Dalesford where it snowed. Yeah. And the worst one I ever played was an interleague game. We played the Bacchus Marsh League one day at Bungaree in the middle of winter, and it hailed, and you just stung all over with hail. And I was
big hails.
I was playing on Big Les Pomeroy. I think he played with Geelong.
And
I was hiding.
Frankie Pomeroy.
I was hiding behind him, trying to get out of the hail.
Well, you went to Carlton at the right time, because it was a great era for the Carlton Football Club. You played in 4 premierships, and how many coaches did you have during your career at Carlton?
Quite a few, but obviously the best was the first. Barassi was far and away the best coach I ever played under. Just to go there when he was coach really was just every kid's dream. Like Ron Barassi had a reputation longer than anyone's arm, but his ability to get the best out of the players that he had was just second to none, and I just loved playing under Barassi.
What was so special about Barassi in that area?
Well, I think it was not only Barassi, but also the team of people he had around him, and it was just exciting. It was an exciting place to be. Just to go to training, like if there were any entertainers in Melbourne, they'd always be at the club. It was always an excitement place. In fact, I reckon I could have been a lot better player in my early career if it hadn't been for Barassi, because we used to have end-to-end kicking at training, and I was just about blown out by by Thursday night, because we just used to have so much fun flying for marks with blokes like Brent Croswell and John Gould. players like that, we just have to have some enormous fun at training. And I think a lot of that, unfortunately, a lot of that's gone out of football these days. A lot of that fun, it's all too much like a business, and I think people really don't enjoy it, and it's a real shame.
Well, if you played in the 1970 premiership under Ron Barassi, then in 72 that would have been under Big Nick. Then in 79 it would have been under Jezza, and then in 1981
it was under
that would have been
Parkin.
under David Parkin. So 4 premierships and 4 different coaches.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
And 73 against Richmond when you knocked us off. It was Nick was coach that year.
And you had Peter Jones in between. Well, the year as well in 1980.
As Jeff Southby said, that was the year we coached ourselves.
and just think, if the Collingwood man had done his job, the recruiter, you wouldn't have beaten Collingwood in 3 of those 4 premierships you played in. You must have loved playing against them.
I love playing against Collingwood. Even playing out at Victoria Park was some of the
Did
better.
you love that?
I love playing out there because the crowd used to bring you alive.
Yeah.
Because they'd expectorate on you. They would throw apple cores at you, stones.
That happens everywhere.
What does that mean, Doug?
No, it only
I reckon
actually
that
happened out
means
there.
spit all over you. That happened to me too, Dave.
David, can I just ask you, not many people, when you were going through the team, you played with John Gould. Now, has there ever been a more eccentric, flamboyant John Gould? Now, do you know John Gould?
Ragsy.
Dougie?
Yeah.
Ragsy.
Yeah, left footer, come off half-back
Come
flank.
off
The worst kicking style of all time.
Yeah,
Dressed very nice, good clothes. Used to wear
the
lovely
most
clothes.
magnificent, sartorially splendid fella you've ever seen. And married into the
family.
the Bailey Millions, didn't he, or something?
Yeah, no, he was a terrific player, John.
Yeah,
Gould.
fantastic, wasn't he?
I think he was the first player ever to wear pantyhose.
That's right, that's right.
Just to
and a
keep him warm.
hairnet over his hair when he would play.
He
Here
didn't
you are,
wear
here you are.
pantyhose, did he?
That's
He did,
perfect.
he
I think
did.
once he was suffering from, I think it might have been
What, in a game?
some sort of contusion to the leg, and he used the pantyhose to keep his leg warm. These players wear it these days, and you don't think twice about those bike pants.
What is Big John saying to you there?
Kick it straight.
Kick it straight so I don't have to-
Nick was terrific because what he used to say is, hopefully I do it here, but he said, hold the ball high, run it, make sure you're running properly, but hold the ball high so you kick through it. There it is.
Well, you did.
kick through it, and the ball will go straight. He said, don't worry about how it floats around, but he said, if you hold it high, your leg must follow through if you get a good run in, and you'll kick the ball straight.
Dave, we're at the 1970. I think it was half time. How far down were you?
6 goals.
44 points down.
Well, 7 goals,
I mean, what about the turnaround? Was it just amazing to be part of that premiership in 70?
What was it, Barras? Now, no one said this. Everybody said it's a myth. Go and handball. Barras doesn't admit to that.
But handball was part of it, but I think what he said to us, well, actually, it was what he said at 3/4 time that really livened us up more than anything else. He said we'd got back into the game, we were still behind.
20-odd points.
But what he said at 3/4 time, he said, look, he used reverse psychology on us because he said, look, whatever happens now, whatever happens, I'm proud of you boys. He said, win, lose or draw, I'm proud of you. And we said, lose or draw, you've got to be joking.
Yeah, that's right.
And everyone just lifted and they went on with it. But it was a terrific game. Like everyone remembers that Teddy Hopkins came on and kicked 4 goals after half time. Not many people remember who he replaced. And talking with people like Len Thompson, it really had a big effect on their whole psyche for their whole careers, and I feel sorry for them. It really hurts me to say that I feel sorry for a Collingwood person, but it did affect their lives. A lot of those players who played in 72, because really they had the game on a plate, and really you should never let a game slip if you're 44 points up, particularly the way football was played then.
Well, the Blues did pretty well, didn't they, winning those premierships during that particular era, because there was a bit of upheaval in the club at the time. I mean, you had Ron as coach, and then all of a sudden he gave it away. Big Nick took over and won a premiership, then all of a sudden Big Nick was gone, and who was going to replace Big Nick? And Serge told us that he was there for 2 or 3 weeks, didn't know what he was doing, and Ian Stewart was there for a short period of time. Then Jezza turned up and all of a sudden won a premiership, and then all of a sudden he was gone, in a big upheaval, and Peter Jones was there. I mean, how did the club keep winning games?
Oh, look, I think it was the players that we had.
The depth of the team.
The depth of the talent. And I said, look, when Percy Jones was coach, basically the players coached themselves because they were in a situation where they were all quite experienced players. They knew how to play the game. When we always used to laugh when coaches used to get you together to talk to you before the game, because really we all knew what we had to do.
Yeah. And but you finished on top of the year.
Well, I know
Percy
when Parkin was
coach,
I used to go and hide in the property steward's room because to me it was a load of what he used to say was not really necessary. So I knew what I was going to do.
You used to hide in the property steward's room?
He used to say, one night he rang me up, it was just before a final, and he rang up and he said, you got to do this, you got to do that. I said, Parko, mate. I said, mate. I said, it's just a game. He said, just a game. And he's thrown the phone down. And I've gone out to my wife and I said, I think I've just stuffed my chance of playing the last final. But luckily he took it in good spirit. But
So
he did say after that, he said I was the most uncoachable player he ever coached.
Really?
Uncoachable?
Yeah, uncoachable.
And you thought the whole team, a bit like the Hawthorn of the 80s,
He didn't-
they
he
looked
didn't
like a
coach
machine.
himself.
That's the way you thought you were.
He didn't realise it, but everyone was coaching themselves. He
That's
brought
right.
out all this whole new lexing and running backs and stalls and smalls, which really, if someone has to introduce new lexing, what's it show you? It shows you that they don't understand the game. So they have to actually produce a new set of words to actually describe it so they understand it. Rubbish.
He's one of the greatest coaches of all time, I perceive.
Did you
good.
think you were in fact uncoachable?
Well, I think I knew what I had to do, and I think that's what coaches are there to do is actually to prepare you. And the things that I'm talking about, Parkin, really were on Saturdays.
Yep.
And I think
Strategy.
the strategy was okay, and he set some very good strategies. I think probably the best thing he ever said in 1981 when we played Collingwood, he actually put the team up on the board, and he went through the lines and said, because there was a fair bit of aggro before the 81 grand final, and we thought that we were going to be knocked around a bit. He went through the players one by one, and he said, such and such, such and such, which one of these blokes can hurt you? And he was absolutely spot on. And not one of those players really was dangerous in any way. And I think we went out walking tall, and whilst I was a bit critical, I was a bit tongue in cheek about Parko, but that comment, from my point of view, was probably the most
Telling.
the most telling thing in the 81 flag, because we went out working a lot taller than perhaps we did when we actually came to the ground.
We had Alan Morrow on a week or so ago, and I asked him about Stewart and Baldock. Was Jezelenko just unbelievable when he first came, or did he have to do something, or what happened to him when he just landed?
Well, you
I
must be
wasn't there
going
in
in your head,
64.
mate. Alan Morrow was on just before David McKay came on.
There you are.
It's been a long day,
Come
Bobby.
back and he'll belt you in a minute,
It's a
Bobby.
long day. Well,
It's a long day for you, Bob.
Well, there it is, but the
Take it
question's
easy.
still the same.
That's right, Bobby.
How
come
good
back.
was Jezelenko?
Well, he started in about 65, I think. He was a magnificent player. Just his ability to read the play, it's similar to player to Baldock. They looked like they had the ball on a string. But I remember one day we were playing at Princes Park, which I prefer to call it. He was running with the ball, and I'm sure two St Kilda players were nearly running side by side. And somehow he got not only to get between them, he actually created a scoring opportunity. I mean, I'd have scored a goal from it. He was just uncanny with his ability to obviously mark, to actually play all facets of the game. A beautiful pass, a beautiful kick for goal. Played terrific as his play for Carlton as a forward was magnificent. But he was just as effective in the latter part of his career when he went to a half-back flank,
Well, was
where
Big
he played
John,
in 79.
Was Big John a mentor for you, or did he have his own particular style that no one else could match?
Big Nick was a fantastic mentor,
Yeah.
and a great protector.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us really didn't realise
How
what he
good
was
it
doing
was.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, how easy he made it for you.
To make a path. And I'm sure I took a lot of marks, particularly on the forward line, when Big Nick was holding a pack back and letting me come in front, and I got all the accolades, and he did the work.
Did you have a lot of success, and I'm trying to read through the history of it in the time you were there, with Western Australian recruits and good recruits I'm talking about Blackwell was there, Ditchburn, who else was there?
Kenny Hunter?
Kenny Hunter.
Warren Ralph.
Bazasto, Warren Ralph.
Well, in my time, it was only Bazasto and Hunter.
Great
but
players.
they came in probably 79, 80.
Yeah.
So they started then in 80. So not so many, but obviously Fitzpatrick was probably one of the best in my era from the West. We had good success with all of our interstate recruits.
Swan, what about the characters of Carlton? Jimmy Buckley, Wayne Johnson, Kenny Sheldon. These characters these days, you don't see a lot in football now, maybe because players can't be that way, but there were some great characters at Carlton Footy Club.
Yeah, Wow Jones was probably...
And Well,
he was just a classic. Val Perovic. I think characters and just a bit of spirit around the place. They really lifted a bloke like Jimmy Buckley. Obviously, in later years, I didn't play with him, but Rhys Jones. Those sort of players, they're just invaluable around the club, because if things get a bit serious, that they were able to slip the one-liner in, and it just broke the tension down. And
They have to be able to play, David. don't they?
Absolutely, they had to be able to
They
play.
have to be able to play to be able to carry that.
They were respected by
That's
everyone,
right,
but
yeah.
also they had a bit of fun in them. And just when you break that tension down, it just takes the pressure off everyone, and you refocus, and you get back on with the job.
How did you survive the the year that Jezza coached and you won the premiership, because most Carlton people that we speak to say that they just, they hated going to training.
It was tough. Jezza basically, he used training as a threat to make sure that we won the games, because if we didn't win a game, he'd make us do 100 hundreds. And if you weren't able to train on a Tuesday night, on a Thursday night, this is before you played, you had to do 20 laps after training to prove that you were fit. So he had a regime. He had a regime that absolutely frightened us. We were frightened of losing. Absolutely.
Did Jezza train himself?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Was he a good trainer?
Not so good.
No, that's right.
But he was very good
because he had such natural flair and talent. He didn't need to.
But he was very good at giving orders, and he did them particularly well. And the other thing we used to do was contesting, and contesting was pretty tough. He'd just kick the ball out in front of you, and you had to fight to bring it back one on one. And then when you got it back, you thought you were finished, you'd handball it to Jezza, and he'd just lay the bird into it again. And you have that taste of blood comes into your throat. You know what it's like when you really work hard. It just brings back some horrible memories, and oh, gee.
We'll take a break and we'll come back with David McKay, and we'll ask him about his current day role, where he's on the board of the Carlton Football Club. Back with more on Grumpy Old Men. Welcome back to Grumpy Old Men. David McKay is our very special guest. Now, David, this year you've joined the board of the Carlton Football Club. In the past, you've been pretty critical, working in the media. It hasn't been a very good year.
No, it hasn't been a good year, but so far. But look, I think, look, Carlton are in a rebuilding process, Kevin, and we've just got to really focus on that. We've got obviously the best coach in the business. He's got a great record with the under-19s.
There's some very nasty murmurings about your coach.
That's just people in the media like you spreading malicious rumours to try and bring Carlton down, Bobby.
The players happy, Swan?
They're happy.
Really happy, are they?
Well, they're focused. They're focused on the job. And look,
you've got some sooks out there. Swan, that's what they call them.
We are rebuilding the side from the ground up, and it's the young players of the future. Obviously, going to be the future of the club. That mixed with the experience of the older players.
What about your older players, though? A lot of them are going to be finished within 2 years' time. Can those youngsters hold on, and you haven't got the draft picks? That's the big issue, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be really tough for us. You picked it in one, Tony, particularly with being excluded from the first and second round draft choices this year and again next year. That is a really tough penalty. But look, we've got to be strategic. We've got Fisher at 72, and I think Norman at 78. They're both terrific players, and next year I think they'll be even better players. Add to those players like Angwin. I think he's going to be a real player of the future. Simpson, and then you add the players that have been around for a while, like Thornton, Spawn, Wiggins. Look, we've got some real talent there. We've just got to try and give them a bit of time to develop, and obviously add new players through the draft this year and next year. And I think we'll be a side that to be reckoned with.
Did you get a shock with Brett Ratton and Hickmont suddenly retiring?
Look, Brett Ratton, I was talking to him after he retired. He had muscles actually growing back onto the joint in his shoulder, so he was in real trouble. And look, he's been a magnificent player.
That's right.
We really need players. If he playing at his top is exactly what Carlton need at the moment. Where our midfield is one of our problem areas, and Ratton and Brown. If you had them generating play in the midfield like they played at their top, Carlton would be a much better side today. We haven't got them just at the moment, but we've got to try and develop those players of the future.
Hey, Swan, I didn't spot you at Jack Elliott's book launch there last week. Invitation slipped you, did it?
Well, I heard just about everyone in Melbourne got invitations, and I'm still waiting for mine. So I might get if he does a sequel.
I might
get invited to that.
Should they have taken his name? I
should never take his name off the stand.
Disagree. They shouldn't have taken his name off the stand.
Did you vote against it, Swan?
Come on, Swan, be honest.
What's your thoughts, David?
Look, I think we've moved on from that.
He's been in the media too long, he has.
He's in politics now.
Oh, beautiful. Well done.
Have the Blues actually disappointed you this year? I mean, before the start of the year, I heard Dennis Pagan say to Carlton supporters, "We will not finish on the bottom of the ladder," but you're darn close.
Probably
You're
right.
darn close. So have you been worse off than what you expected?
Yeah, look, I think we were travelling pretty well until perhaps the Brisbane game, when we were ahead at half time, and just those 2 goals that Martin Pike got before half time ruined the game. But I think after that, I think that the side actually lacked a little bit of confidence, or has lacked a little bit of confidence since that game, and I think that's been a problem for us. You know, a couple of thrashings after that have really made it tough for some of the young kids to keep their head up.
Has the club returned to the influential people, you know, when there was a big dust up and everything like that, and it's all fresh again now? Are there plenty of supporters and wealthy supporters getting around the club again?
Well, it's not just wealthy supporters, it's rank and file, because we've got 33,500 members,
good effort.
which is a record for the club. I think it's 7,000 more than we've ever had before.
Yes.
Plus, included in that, the renaming of that stand that you mentioned before. Everyone who bought one of those put in $1,000, and that's been a significant has had a significant impact on the club's finances. So the membership plus the Hero Stand launch. And people can still buy Hero Stand memberships right until the end of this year, and it's tax deductible.
Beautifully so. Working beautifully.
David, thanks for joining us on Grumpy Old Men. It's been great to catch up with one of the truly greats of the Carlton Football Club. 4 premierships, and who knows, he could have played with the Bombers or could have been out there at Collingwood. It's been great to catch up.
I never
Gavin.
thought Swans could mark either.
And of course, that was another one that was missed out by Bobby Davis. We look forward to you joining us next week on Grumpy Old Men when we look back to the good old days of AFL football.